Good news, everyone. Patrick here from Evil Genius Zero, and today's video topic is going to be DC versus Marvel. And actually, this is going to be a new mini series. Let's say I'm expecting like 5, 6 videos. Um, maybe one a week, maybe one every other week. I'm not entirely sure as to their schedule, but I'm gonna try and get a bunch of them done, and maybe I'll revisit it at a later date too, because you could really talk about this topic forever. But for right now, I'm limiting it to a couple of episodes and a discussion. Maybe a wrap up at the end with my general thoughts or whatever. So, this was a requested topic, and I kind of expanded upon it because it's such a broad thing. And so it was requested by Casey Dye via Facebook, and her specific question or the topic was she'd always heard DC versus Marvel discussed in the context of Marvel has great superheroes, but DC has better supervillains. And she wanted to know my thoughts on that and see my video on that. On the surface, I would agree with that statement. I can think of a bunch of DC supervillains that are awesome, and I can't think of too many Marvel supervillains that resonate that well with me. And I can think of a lot of superheroes in the Marvel universe that I really think are cool. And don't get me wrong, there's also a lot of crap there too, but I could think of like several. Like I really like since the movies came out, I really have been getting into Captain America, Iron Man. I was into Iron Man a little bit more before that. I used to read the Ultimates series of Iron Man. I think I read the first two, and there were three. Didn't read the third one. I read some of the Ultimates Avengers, it was just called the Ultimates, I believe, and I liked it. Nothing is really jumping out in my brain about it, but other than maybe seeing Hank Pym beat his wife, I think that I saw that, which was really fucking weird and disturbing. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about my two favorite characters, superheroes from each universe. So for DC, that's Batman. For Marvel, that is Spider-Man. And when I think about superheroes, when it comes down to it, what makes a superhero, right? What is the important thing about a superhero? They're there when they need to be. So Clark Kent would either use his super senses, or he's in the newsroom and he's hearing about the news, and he would go off and save something, and he could do that very quickly. Or Batman would travel using his various means. But a big thing about the way he traveled was rooftop to rooftop, jumping and running and swinging via his lines. The high tensile strength things that he would swing rooftop, the grappling hooks and all that kind of shit. He would literally swing, just like Spider-Man, rooftop to rooftop, and go after his villains that way. And that's one of the neat things about them, is that they have this similar way of traveling. Now Batman also has the Batmobile and the Bat Cycle and the Bat Pod and the Bat Helicopter and the Bat Plane and the Bat Hoverboard and the Bat air gun and all those Bat themed everythings. Hovercraft is the one I was looking for when I said hoverboard, but he also could totally have a Batman hoverboard. I could see that, no fucking problem. But again, it's often portrayed in the comics that he's swinging into action on a rope, and so does Spider-Man in a sense. I mean, yeah, he's using super glue that dries really quickly, and he's able to shoot it out. Or in the movie, his organic web shooters, which I understand why they did that in a lot of ways. They've never really made sense to me. it also doesn't really make sense that he's able to make the whip shooters as a teenager and yada yada yada. I get it, but whatever. So the two characters have a lot in common. They both are able to arrive in much the same way using the ropes, and they also have a weirdly similar tragic backstory, where Spider-Man, his parents are dead, and he's kind of raised by his aunt and uncle, and he could have prevented his uncle from getting murdered by a street thug or whatever, or like he's some kind of robber. It could have been a mugger. It could have been, whatever. He could have prevented this because he ran into the person before that and he saw them commit a crime, and he didn't do anything about it because he didn't think it was really his responsibility. Batman, on the other hand, is a child when his parents get murdered in front of him, and he's always felt responsible for that, in a weird way. Like, he couldn't have done anything about it. I'm sure as an adult, like, he could rationalize that, like, I couldn't really do anything about that. I couldn't have prevented that, but he still feels guilty about it in a really sick and twisted way. So they're obviously similar. Spider-Man is a much more positive, funny, friendly character, and Batman is typically portrayed in a very dark light. In the 60s and 70s, he wasn't so dark. Like they had the Batman TV show with Adam West, and then he was on like Scooby-Doo and shit like that. And it wasn't so dark. But in the 80s, 90s, 2000s now, he's really portrayed as a very dark, very psychologically damaged character who's not so far off from the people that he's trying to protect Gotham and the world from. Now, I mean, that might be a slight exaggeration to say he's not so far off, but, he dresses up like a bat, and he runs out and endangers himself and others with his actions. There's no question about that. So, he's not that far off. He's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to do that. In their private lives as Peter Parker, Bruce Wayne, they're completely different. Bruce Wayne is a billionaire. He lives in lavish comfort if he wants to. Now, he trains himself night and day, or well, really during the day, so that he can fight at night. And he, investigates things using his computer and gathering research at the scene of crimes and yada yada yada. But he also could be, he could go to dinner parties and he can have these surface level relationships with women because, for various reasons. The secret weighs on him, the secret of being Batman, the secret shame of seeing his parents die in front of him and not being able to do anything about it, not wanting to risk the women or the people he loves around him. That's why the only person who, is really close with him is Alfred and other superheroes. He's good friends with Clark Kent, Superman. He's good friends with Dick Grayson, his former Robin and current Nightwing. He's good, he's got a fatherly relationship with both Dick and Tim, and he kind of had one with Jason Todd. And he is the father of Damian Wade, the current Robin, or most recent Robin. He's got a lot going on, as far as that stuff goes. Spider-Man, on the other hand, has relatable problems, he's late on bills, and he is late for class or school or work or whatever, and everything in his personal life is a struggle. As a superhero, he tends to hit, below him. He most commonly is going after like muggers and stuff like that, but he also has a extensive rogues gallery that he usually outclasses if you really think about it. Like some of these people, like the Shocker, basically just have a fancy gun. Oh, I can use concussive blasts, which actually makes him less dangerous if you really think about it, than a gun. I hate the fucking Shocker. I think he's awful. Um, I like to make fun of him because he's really called the Shocker. But, you um, your average. I will say this, like, Spider-Man does have a lot of superpowered enemies too. That might be genuine threats to him. Like Doc Ock is kind of a threat to him, because he's got the superpowered, you know, uh, arms that he uses to basically walk around and throw things. But like one hit from Spider-Man and he's done, right? Because he's just a dude with like this thing grafted onto him by accident. Um, he doesn't have like actually strong muscles. He's in fact I would think that the having the octopus arms would actually kind of weaken him in a lot of ways. Um, the Kingpin is just a normal dude that's like beastly strong and fat. Uh, yeah. So I wanted to talk. I got off track, but I was talking about Peter Parker's personal life, and he's got this Aunt May that he feels responsible for, and has a stroke every other year, and he's got a girlfriend or slash wife in the form of Mary Jane Watson. He's got a secret identity, just like Batman, although he did briefly reveal himself during the original Civil War from like 2005, 2006, whatever that was. Um, but he wanted to take that back, and so he made a deal with like this like genie type thing that like erased everyone's memory of Spider-Man, so that May and Mary Jane would be safe. It really was just because people were tired of seeing, as far as like back behind the scenes, like people were just tired of seeing a married Peter Parker. They wanted to see him struggle in dating and stuff like that. He seemed too unrelatable. He was too happy. Like you can't be a happy married guy and risk yourself like that, like he does. Constantly, every day, every night. Um, so the writers wanted to kind of erase the Mary Jane Watson story, and so that was their part of their way of doing that. Um, so that's kind of the similarities between the two characters. Where I think that they really, I mean, Batman doesn't really have any superpowers. Spider-Man has super strength, super speed, to some extent, um, and like reflexes and stuff like that. He's got this precognitive ability for danger sense, which is super useful. Um, he's in some iterations he's got the organic web shooters, which are kind of like a superpower basically. And even if he doesn't, he has the mechanical web shooters, which are treated similarly to a superpower. But then I guess if you're just saying that, then every tool that Batman has would also be kind of a superpower. Yeah. So let's just stick to strength, speed, reflexes, precognitive, danger sense type thing. Spidey senses are tingling. And he also has shit. I just had it in my head. He also has at least in the Ultimates version, he has some sort of healing factor. So he gets shot, and he has like a basic healing. Like it's not like Wolverine or anything, but he definitely heals faster than your average human being. Batman, no superpowers. He's just rich. He's a really good fighter. He's brilliant. Um, Brilliant tactician. Probably, presented as comic books' most premier tactician. So it's important. Those are important things. I don't know, but where they really separate is their villains. and I made like a brief list of my favorite villains for both characters, and I just want to talk about them really quickly. So for Spider-Man, I have Doctor Octopus, Venom, the Lizard, Kingpin, Green Goblin. They're not in any kind of order there. Like Venom's actually really high, and I kind of don't like him. Uh, I I like Eddie Brock. I like that. Like he's kind of a creepy character, right? Like he's jealous of Peter Parker, and then you have the suit, which is just like jealous is a really good word too, but for what it is, because it feels rejected by him, right? It feels broken up with. It feels slighted. Um, like they broke, like it's a girlfriend and they broke up, and he can't like the suit can't stand to see him be happy anywhere else, and so their hatred kind of fuses. Which is actually, I guess I'm talking about things that I think are really cool about Venom. Um, but presentation wise, oh god, I hate the fucking tongue. The tongue is what really creeps me out about the character Venom. It doesn't. I just, I just don't like it. Um, if he's got his mouth closed, I don't mind Venom a lot, like a lot less. You know, I think it's a better visual with his mouth closed. It's less offensive to me. And I don't mean that he's like an offensive character. It bothers me, right? The tongue, it bothers me. It creeps me out. The drool. I get that they might make good pictures out of it. It kind of works. Like the art in in just visually, I get that like the tongue is a neat feature. I just don't like it. I just really don't fucking like it. Um, his powers are similar to Spider-Man's, although somehow I think he's slightly stronger, which doesn't really make sense, but okay. Um, really, like he's okay. Venom's okay. Um, I think that the movie kind of fucked him up pretty bad, and I see that they're in talks to do one with Tom Hardy, and I think that that's a weird, not a bad move. I think he'll be good. I guess I'm just sick of like these guys playing like all the same guys are playing all the same characters. So like he was a decent Bane in the Batman universe. Like, can't we just find another actor? Do we really only have like six actors? Are there, it's and not like this is a universe controlled by Tim Burton or whatever, where there's only two actors ever. I get that. It's a little bit better than that, but like, come on, man. Does Ryan Reynolds need to be in every fucking movie? And Deadpool was great. Don't get me wrong, but do we need Ryan Reynolds as every superhero? Do we need Christopher Evans is in almost every superhero? He's in the Fantastic fucking Four. He's in Losers. He's in Captain America. Like, come on. Like, there's got to be another blonde big dude somewhere. You know? So, Tom Hardy's a good actor. I will, there are some negative things about him too. But, but I think he'll be good as Venom. And I think Venom's okay. He's not like top tier. What is Venom really trying to accomplish, right? It's very, very personal. And so it's not to say that it's terrible, motivations, but like if you compare that against like Batman supervillains, like it just doesn't stack up for me. There's no like I guess he's technically an existential threat a little bit, but it's not. All right, I think I've talked myself into liking Venom. Sorry, Venom's probably my top tier Spider-Man villain. Doctor Octopus, I talked about a little bit before. I think that he is very similar to Peter in that he's a brilliant scientist. And there was actually a run of comics called Superior Spider-Man in which Doctor Octopus somehow takes over the body of Peter Parker, and that actually sounds really cool to me. I need to like find those comics somehow and read them. I'll probably get on like Marvel Unlimited for like a month or something like that. That sounds like a really cool idea to me because he's apparently a better Spider-Man than Spider-Man was, and I could totally see that being the case because Peter was smart, but like weirdly lacked motivation. So I could totally see Doctor Octopus being a better spider, like as Spider Man. I could see that working better. The Lizard is he's okay. I have like conceptual problems. Like his arm should never fall back off. That doesn't really make sense to me. Like it's not like you're re-injuring the arm. If that was somehow tied to everything, I'd be okay with it. But like every time like he reverts back to being Kirk Connors, it's just the arm is gone, and I think that's ridiculous. Like why is the arm falling off? It was not diseased. It's if that was like the source of his lizard power somehow, and they keep cutting it off to like transfer him back, I think that would be an interesting twist on it. Or maybe he even cuts it off to like revert back. Again, these are interesting concepts, but that's not how I've ever seen it. So it's basically just Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but it's a lizard. It's cool enough. The Kingpin, I included this in here because I think he's okay. I know he's more closely associated with like Daredevil and stuff like that. But he's okay. Like he's an alright character. He's not super maniacal. He's just trying to make a buck, like be really rich though, or kind of control things. I don't really see him having like real machinations for world domination or anything. He barely seemed like he's kind of a big deal in Manhattan, but it's not really like he's a world force. The Green Goblin. Okay, so I'm most familiar with the Green Goblin from the movie, in which he played a fairly big role, and also a little. I know him a little bit from the comic books. I caught on to him a couple times. Like I remember when. Excuse me. Sorry. I remember when Norman Osborn kind of took over Shield somehow, and he renamed it Hammer and made the Thunderbolts into like the Avengers and shit like that. And he was the Iron Patriot, I believe. He's okay. Norman. He's okay, but I just like at his best in the movies and stuff like that. He's just crazy. He doesn't really have good motivations. I don't really remember him being in the '90s animated series. And you know what, meant to mention this earlier is that I think that probably the reason why these characters resonate so much with me is because they had very popular cartoons in the '90s when I was younger. Like I was probably like 10 or 12 when Batman the animated series came out, and maybe like a year or two older for Spider-Man, because it came out a couple years after that. And they were both good adaptations, very different. Like Spider-Man's very colorful. Batman is very like Art Deco noir, which I think because of that I love Art Deco and stuff. Like BioShock, my favorite game of all time. Art Deco. It also seems like whatever. I don't want to turn this into Art Deco video. But I think that's another thing that is similar about both of these characters that drew me into them. I think that both of the cartoon series are classics in their own right. I think Batman probably holds up slightly better because it was so deeply stylized. And they tended to have more one-off episodes, so you could kind of like watch it here and there. I know that like Spider-Man tended to have more like sequentialized episodes, which is something I have always appreciated, and I think I really appreciated it back then. So like you'd have like the transmutagenic arc and like various arcs, and I liked some of that. And they also, Spider-Man in particular did a pretty good job about adapting actual comic book series stories and plot lines into the TV show. Same thing with X-Men as well. But like I don't know that Batman didn't do that, but it doesn't. I don't think he did. Batman supervillains. My favorites are Ra's al Ghul, the Joker, Bane, Scarecrow, and the Riddler. Um, and again, they both have a lot more villains than this, but these are my favorite. So let's just take them in the order that I wrote them. Ra's al Ghul. So Ra's al Ghul is essentially immortal, right? He's a couple hundred years old. Um, he's really smart. He's kind of crazy, but not terribly so. Um, he has an agenda. He wants to take over the world. He thinks that he'll improve the world, and it might not be the way you want it to happen, but like he certainly believes that he's going to improve the world. Now, I don't see anything like that in anywhere to do with Spider-Man. Spider-Man does not have any villains that are trying to take over the world. They're mostly like bank robbers and shit like that. Ra's al Ghul has a fucking agenda, and not necessarily you don't necessarily want him to rule the world, but I respect that he does want to rule the world. I I respect that in his story, in Ra's al Ghul's story, he is the hero. You can't say that about Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus is just like, oh shit, I ran out of funding for my whatever, and so I'm going to rob a bank. With like no forethought into thinking like, oh, the tax man's going to come along and figure out that you robbed a fucking bank when you suddenly have all this money to do the research that you needed to do. Nobody worries about that. You know, the Lizard, same kind of... Lizard's a little bit... I'll give the Lizard a pass on this one, but, like, the Green Goblin has, like, no motivations as far as I can tell. Like, you know, when he took over the, I guess, S.H.I.E.L.D., he kind of might have had some, but generally speaking, he's not presented to have, like, be a real motivated character in like, you know, trying to take over the world. But Ra's al Ghul, he has a fucking mission, okay? And he is his own hero. So I think that's really cool. The Joker. There's a lot of different versions of the Joker. Sometimes he's just like this prankster, villainy type. Sometimes he's just like this psychopathic, cruel dude. I actually like all of them. I'm cool with the Joker. I'm good with, you know, the Jack Nicholson Joker. I'm good with the Heath Ledger Joker. I'm good with... I'm actually kind of... I like the Jared Leto Joker. I know that that's a weird thing to say. People fucking love hating on that Joker. I didn't like the tattoos. I think they were a little bit much. I really hated the teeth for that Joker, but I think that like he felt like a real gangster. You know what I mean? And like Heath Ledger's Joker, as much as he was out to destroy the world, see the city burn, see the forest burn, whatever the line is, who the fuck is following that guy? Who the fuck is following Heath Ledger Joker? Nobody in the world. Right? Because in the opening scene, he murders everyone that does. And what's the quickest way to get rid of followers? Start murdering them. Because anyone else who's like, hey, maybe I'll follow the... Oh, shit. It's not like they got caught. This guy just fucking murdered them. We murdered them all. Okay. So the Joker has his problems. Scarecrow is fucking cool, right? He's just this psychologist or, you know, psychologist or psychiatrist who invents this drug, weaponizes it, and it causes people panic and fear. Fucking cool, right? Like, that's a cool thing to happen as far as a villain goes. Like, they you know, what's the word? Like, the famous line is, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. This guy causes fucking fear. Mechanically, you know, chemically. Very Bill Cosby-y, but he causes fear to happen in other people. And so I like it. I think it's a cool character. The Riddler. Man. it's weird to talk about him in this context. I think that he he's kind of a joke. He's kind of presented like a joke in a lot of ways, but like Jim Carrey was the Joker in one of the movies. But I like him. I just not Jim Carrey's version. I just like the Riddler. Jim Carrey was the Riddler. I just like the Riddler. I think that he is like obsessive compulsive, you know, and gets in his own way, and I just think it's an interesting character. You know, he's got to show off, and there are villains in the world that are like that, like you know, like Zodiac and other serial killers. Like they get these relationships with the people that are trying to hunt them, and you know they write in and they Son of Sam, another good example, where they're just trying to show off, and in his case he does it in this very self-destructive way, and there's question marks literally everywhere. Like I would not be surprised if he had a question mark on his dick if he took down his pants. Like he's just fucking funny. I love him. I just thought of Two-Face while I was talking about this, and I like Two-Face. I don't really like him on this list, but I want to give him like an honorable mention, you know, because Two-Face is he was one of Bruce's friends. They knew each other in his private life, and he gets horribly scarred, and it kind of like breaks his psyche in two, and there's like a lot of cool elements as far as chance and like him flipping the coin, and it's cool visuals, and like you see those types of storylines reflected in other culture or other parts of the culture, like No Country for Old Men. Like that guy literally flips the coin to see if he's going to kill somebody, and that's I'm sure that wasn't directly inspired. Like it wasn't like they saw like the Batman the animated series were like, you know what, let me incorporate a coin toss into seeing whether or not he's going to kill him. It's not like I'm sure they didn't do it intentionally, but it's just like you see that and it happens, and I like him. Honorable mention. And again, you put Two-Face against any of the knuckleheads I said for Spider-Man, and I think he fits, well against any of those guys. Last but not least, I saved this guy so I could kind of have an end cap, Bane. I love Bane. I don't think they've gotten him quite the way I love him in either of the movies that he's been in. He was in Batman and Robin, in which he played this like hulking, stupid fucker. And they got the hulking right. Like he was okay. Like, and then Tom Hardy as Bane. Again, I think that he did an admirable job, but I think like there were just systematic problems with that movie, as far as it was maybe too overstuffed with certain things, with a lot of things, and then like the mask in particular, like masks can be really hard, and then the way they dubbed it over, it was really weird, and it sounded very strange, and like the mask is over his face, and so they dub it over, and it sounded kind of removed from his body, and it was just so weird, and I know that some of that was Tom Hardy's decision, and that worries me for Venom, but I don't know. And honestly, the way that his voice would trail off, like, all he needed was one of these. Like, it was a weird choice. It was a very weird choice. But in the comic books, that he uses Venom, a drug, to make him, like, it's kind of like steroids. But he's this big dude who's brilliant. He was raised in a prison, kind of blamed for his father's crime, and like I believe his father raped his mother, and he was brought up in prison. Um, and he broke out of that prison and uh, became a criminal, and like tried to emigrate to the United States and into Gotham and tries to take over in Gotham, and he sees Batman, and he sees Batman as a threat to his criminal enterprise, and so what he does is he plans a psychological attack on Batman, and he's very successful with it. It's like and he's running Batman ragged. By the time that they face off, Batman has like not 5 o'clock Shadow, like 3 days later Shadow, 6 days later Shadow. He's real scruff, like he's looking worse than me right now, and he just like he's an existential threat to him because he's so smart, but he's also this physically imposing presence, right? And he just lifts Batman up in the air and drops him onto his knee and breaks his back. But it's really that so the psychological attack is I think he figures out that Bruce, maybe he doesn't, I'm not going to say that, but he is able to release many of the prisoners from Arkham Asylum, breaks them all out, and he wears Batman down with all this other stuff, and by the time he's well rested and fit and ready to go, when Batman comes after him, he just fucking drops him. And you gotta say something about that. That's just amazing. Batman is the world's greatest detective. He is a master tactician, and this guy, with planning and with thought and all that kind of stuff, just really came after him. The movie version is good. It's a good version of Bane, other than the talking. I didn't like the talking. But it's similarly, they make a psychological attack on Bruce there too, but it's really the comic book version that really sells me. And so in this situation, Spider-Man is funny. He's fun, he's light, he's airy. He's got all these real world problems. Batman has one real world problem and is dark and brooding. And he does have a family around him. He does have Tim, Damian Wayne. He does have Nightwing, Dick Grayson. He does have Alfred, but generally speaking, he shuns these relationships, especially as Bruce Wayne. He might fuck around. It seems like he does, but he doesn't really ever establish these long lasting relationships. One other similarity that I want to talk about for both characters is they both have a cat themed femme fatale type character. So Batman has Catwoman and Spider-Man has Black Cat. And they're both jewelry thieves. It's just it you can't make the similarities up. They are really weirdly similar characters, Batman and Spider-Man, and I really like them both. Batman has better villains, like Ra's al Ghul. Again, just to go through it real quick, Ra's al Ghul is trying to take over the world. Joker is an existential threat to Batman. Bane is an existential is a psychological threat to him. He's a physical presence threat to him. You got Scarecrow, who there's nothing you can really do about the chemical spray. You just have to ride the fucking dragon. You know what I mean? And the Riddler, he's just funny. He's just cute. I love him. How can you hate the Riddler? He's just he's just trying to show off his own intellect, and he keeps just getting defeated. But he's a cool character. And again, as far as villains go, he's just a good foil for Batman. Batman's big thing is that he's a smart guy. He's smart. He's a really great fighter. He's one of the world's greatest martial artists. But the real thing that really makes Batman Batman is he's brilliant. And so he's a good foil for that. Spider-Man, his character is his good villain. His best villain is Venom. Other than that, I don't know. The rest are just not that good. And again, he's got the fucking Shocker. The fucking Shocker! God damn it. Electro, the Hobgoblin, who's just a fucking knockoff of the Green Goblin. So, um, the villains of Batman are definitely superior. I think that the Batman villains are the best rogues gallery in comic books. As far as powers go, like, the whole point of Batman is that he doesn't have powers. And that's fine. Like, that's totally cool, valid choice, right? As far as actual superpowers go, though, Spider-Man has the best set of defined powers. He's slightly superhuman. Well, I shouldn't say slightly. He's got superhuman strength, but it's like it's just enough to be useful, but it's not like he's like lifting up tanks and throwing them around. Like he could maybe pick up a Volkswagen Beetle. You know, if a car is driving at him and he gets hit by it, he's gonna get fucked up, right? Like it's not like Wolverine where like oh he can walk away from anything. It's not like uh, the Hulk that can run through anything and try like the Hulk can't get into a believable fight, right? Because anything like they often show him picking up things to hit like people or other things with the things. So like pick up a tank to hit a tank with a tank. And it doesn't really make sense because his hand is strong enough that like he should just punch the tank. Like the added weight of the thing isn't really going to help him because he's so powerful. But like, Spider-Man, like if he gets into a fight with somebody like that, he's just got to be smart. He's just got to jump around and like wear them out. Like he's strong, but he's not so strong that like his villains have to like destroy the fucking city. Like Superman, right? In the Man of Steel, like the city is destroyed by the fight that he had. Both of the small town and the city are destroyed by like fairly simple fights. And then like he would pick up like let's say he grabs like an I-beam from like the building that they're tearing down, and he hits Zod with it. Like his hand is fucking denser. Hit him with your fucking hand because like it's your hand will hurt more. You're hitting him with a fucking pool noodle, all right? Like context wise, like you hit me with a pool noodle. Like I'm not super happy about it, but like you hit me with your fist, and I'm like, what the fuck did you just do? It's on, okay? But Superman, Hulk, all those characters, like they're so strong and they're so invulnerable that everything that they're doing is really just for like visual appeal if you really think about it. The real fight with him and Zod ends with him just grabbing Zod by the neck and breaking it, right? Like it should have been a jiu-jitsu match. Like it really should have. But, they're like, man, jiu-jitsu sucks, so we're gonna have them like fly around through buildings that it would be like running through a wall, like a paper wall in Tokyo or something like that to you or me. Like it's totally pointless. It's totally destructive and it makes like for a good video, but like that's it. That's it. There's no point to it, So that's why Spider-Man has really cool powers. I think that he is like the best superpowers in comic books, in general. But Batman, best character, best villain set. I'd give it if I have to. Like, I shouldn't even really argue this. Like, I've got a Batman poster over there, right? I've got actually other Batman posters because I have a Harley Quinn one and I have a Joker poster somewhere else. They're not hanging right now. The only clothing I think that no, I have other clothing, but I have a Batman hat. Fucking bat. This thing is awesome, man. Check this out. Also, this was for kids. I don't know how the hell this is supposed to look. It doesn't really like look right on me because it's so big. Like anyways, got this guy right here. In fact, he's gonna take up I think permanent residence over here. I love Batman. I'm gonna have to give it to Batman. So, round 1, DC wins. Best superhero, Batman. Best villains, Batman villains. DC wins round 1. Okay? So, shout out again to Casey Dye. Thank you for the video topic. Look forward to other videos in the future, and there will be more in this series. I would expect, again, like I've actually been hitting a lot more videos and a lot more topics that I want to get to. So it seems like I'm doing like 2 to 3 a week, maybe a little bit more than that. I expect to put another video out tomorrow. And so who knows when the next, I will say this, who knows when the next one will be. I guarantee I'll have another one out next week, though, in this video series. So this is going to be, let's talk it out, because that's my awesome phrase. Let's talk it out, bitch. Marvel versus DC, or DC versus Marvel. Okay? If you like these videos, please share them with your friends, and like and subscribe on, the YouTube, or follow me on Facebook. Evil Genius Zero. This is Patrick. Thanks for letting me talk it out, bitch. Bitch. Don't know why I'm saying bitch all the time. Bitch. Bitch, bitch, bitch.